if somebody is an adult and they choose to show their vagina, I don't judge that person negatively. And
you should judge them negatively. Explicitly, you should judge them negatively, because it means that they don't respect themselves and they don't respect anybody else. It means that they put no value upon, especially if they're like with another partner or whatever. And it means they don't value future partners because they just give it out for free, essentially. And this attitude, this is like the Destiny, oh, it's okay if you suck cock if you're married type attitude. And this just comes from him being like liberal, I guess, and just from the general attitude of now. But no, you should judge them. They should be like slut shamed for that. And the more you slut shame people for doing that, the more you help other women, high value women who did like do the right thing, which is why it's actually like pro woman to slut shame people. And this reminds me, another thing, I didn't pull up the clips for this. Apparently, as of like yesterday, LOLCOW Live is making you give like your email, social security number, your birth date, and your birth certificate to join. It's not that far, but like your personal information to join the server. This is why. So that if you say something that Keem doesn't like, he can like do something with your info, right? So that next time something like this happens and Keem says, "Who is this guy?" He can just pull it up on the server or whatever.
The difference is when you call in, you're gonna have a username. You're not gonna be an anonymous person. That's the difference. You're gonna actually have.
Okay, so yeah, this connects to what I was saying. This is why he changed the policy in the Discord to have personal information, so that when people call in, they have to do it with their real name. That's so fucking gay. If you kind of let David Jaffe go through this thing, we would have seen the clip and maybe we would have judged for ourselves or whatever. And then after the stream, maybe you have Brantley say something. But now I think it is true, because you're having a massive like cuck rage. you're having massive cuck rage where now you're talking about fighting, essentially face to face, right? Fighting IRL random chatters. I'm going to give this little speech again because the last time I gave it was a part of a video that didn't make it in. But LOLCOW Live started as the concept of getting two LOLCOWs that everybody hates for good reason and bullying them online, and they get to make some money out of it. That was the idea. And that attracts a very specific audience, an audience that probably is the same that watches this, the two bots that watch this. And it's audience like me, like youngerish, like men who follow like internet drama, right? And that's what they started as. And the thing is, though, that Keem needed to warp it into a protagonist story about himself, like he does about everything. And, I've said before that for all of Keem's faults, he knows how to make money online, and I'll stand by that through this whole thing. But what ended up happening is he makes a spin-off show, which is LOLCOW Queens, and that kind of set off this arc where the show started to pander more and more towards a different audience. And it was an audience that was kind of always in the background, had always been there, and then now that they were starting to get attention, really started to become the focus of the show. And that's, there's a reason why 40% of Kiwi farms is women. Part of it is because there are no female-friendly anti-trans spaces online. That's one part of it. I'll give him that. Cool. The other part of it is because, as strange as it sounds, there is a female LOLCOW enjoyer audience. And when they're making fun of other women, they can be very vicious. But when it's male LOLCOWs, they tend to fall into this pattern where they pity the LOLCOW. And the reason my theory is why is because a lot of them are like in their 30s and are starting to feel that like maternal impulse, so they want to cultivate and they want to nurture. They have the nurturing impulse, and they see like a Boogie and Wings, and they don't see, like, I see Boogie and Wings as middle-aged loser, like completely unsympathetic retards. A middle-aged woman who's getting this nurturing impulse, some of them might see them as a little boy who's being bullied. And that audience, like I said, has always been part of like the LOLCOW watchers type people. And I think Keem, whether he realized it or not, because I think a lot of what he does is subconscious, recognized that audience existed and started to turn LOLCOW Live to pander to them. And the way he did that was with LOLCOW Queens, by having like a female-centered show, right, with female-type drama, right? Because the girls do like the girl drama stuff. They just view it differently than the male LOLCOWs. And then they turned the main show with Boogie and Wings into less bully and torture two unsympathetic idiots to how do we save them? And of course, it would be Keem who saves them. How do we fix them? How do we do this? And they really leaned into the pity element. And I think that kind of the shark was jumped on the transfer from this young male, more, for lack of a better term, malicious sort of audience to this middle-aged female nurturing type audience. It happened after the cancer saga. because that's when Queens got made. That's when Keem started to really push the whole redemption arc narrative and all of this stuff. And that worked for a little while. For most of fall of 2024, LOLCOW Live was doing really well. I stopped watching it because it wasn't, I wasn't the target audience, and I just want to see these guys get essentially tortured live. I don't care about the redemption arc. If they redeem themselves, it's not going to be done online, essentially. Whatever. Good. Godspeed. Do whatever you want, Keem. But then you have the incident in, what was it, March, where Wings pushes his wife live. And, when you've cultivated this middle-aged, not married female audience, you're going to have a lot of, just by the nature of that demographic, a lot of domestic abuse victims. And they're not going to put up with Wings pushing his wife live. And it's a shame because it was one of the first real moments on the show since the cancer saga. It was something that didn't feel scripted when so much of the rest of the show did. And obviously the audience rebelled. They spurred out. They wanted Wings off the show. And Keem was kind of put between a rock and a hard place where you want to keep Wings because it's content, right? He's content brained. But you cannot, set off these women who are most of your audience now over something that is, probably really dear to them. So they kick Wings. And so the last 2 months since that's happened, the show has kind of been in a downward spiral. It's had the views and money are halved and whatnot. They've been looking for a host and they don't really have one. The other problem is that by focusing on this, for lack of a better term, more vanilla, wholesome type audience, a lot of the other locals you might bring on a show like that, you can't because they're just too far. And you might say, well, what do you mean they're too far? They have fucking Boogie. And Boogie's literal Satan, right? And it's yeah, but the thing is, Boogie plays into the pity angle really hard. So it kind of, in the views of people who fall for that pity angle, which is their audience now, he's more acceptable than someone else they might bring on as a co-host like Ethan Ralph. Think about that. Ethan Ralph would be the perfect co-host for a LOLCOW Live show that was more oriented to their original audience that are just malicious young men who want to see him get tortured. Because they would just go on, they'd scream at each other, it would be insane, they'd bring on callers, it would be a zoo, right? Which is what I would like to see, what that audience would like to see. But like I said, the middle-aged female audience that they've cultivated would hate that. They would never accept Ethan Ralph because he's Ethan Ralph. He's he's up there in top woman herders of the decade, right? He's in a death struggle with OJ over who's hurt more women, right? So they really don't have a co-host. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to basically draw from the second and third string, because as part of this, Keem has spun off all these other shows, brought in all these other people, random Discord people, because that's the other thing, they have this weird Discord community. I've never been in it because I ain't giving that fucking money, but you can tell that it's incestuous as fuck, because whenever any of those guys call in, they are whoa, buddy, they're locals themselves, and you can tell whether Keem realizes it or not, he has a LOLCOW farm as the pay pigs, and he's kind of trying to pull those guys in. The problem is that they're low quality stock. If we're thinking about this cattle, all these people that they're pulling out of the Discord, they're very low quality cattle. And for a show as prominent as that one, they could pull some studs, like I said, stud tier LOLCOWs, like Ethan Ralph, whatever, but they won't. And so you can tell that this has been weighing on Keem, and people have been sort of pointing out the issues with the show. And it came to a head last night where one of the shows, Lolcowtechtalk, was originally made, and this is one of the spinoffs, it was originally made so that RTU, who himself is a giant LOLCOW, and his former co-host / lover / best friend, Jay Hooft, could have a show where basically 15 minutes was talking about tech and 45 minutes was relitigating their 10-year friendship. Okay. And, there were some people who were into that, but the problem is RTU did what RTU does, which is self-sabotage and ruin the whole thing, even after signing some crazy 10-year Scientology type contract with Keem, where he gave up his play button. And after he got kicked off, they needed a replacement, right? And so they got David Jaffe. The problem with David Jaffe is he's a real person, and this is Lolcowtechtalk, right? So David Jaffe's kind of his politics are pretty liberal. I don't really care about that for this, but he worked on God of War. He worked on a couple of video games. He's an actual guy. He's an actual guy who's worked in the industry and stuff. The thing is, nobody was watching Lolcowtechtalk to talk tech. it's a LOLCOW show. So when it's just him and Jay, and I don't even know if Jay is still involved, and they're just talking tech, it's sort of like, obviously there's an audience for that if it was just a normal channel, but not for the LOLCOW stuff. And so, like I said, all this stuff is coming to a head with Keem. Also, keep in mind that just 2 weeks ago, Lynx dropped that phone call recording where Keem is talking about turning her face into a glazed donut, where Keem is talking about her being addicted to the Keem cock, all this crazy shit. And the way he shrugged that off, despite being married, is by Keem has some kind of weird freaking thing with his wife where basically they have threesomes and stuff, and he's like, he can go and get other girls, and so can Brantley, but there's no other men. Which is why there are rumors that Brantley is just a lesbian. I say rumors because I don't want to just say that that's 100% true, but, you know, there's enough circumstantial evidence that I think a jury would convict. I'll say that. But so he's under all of this pressure, right? And apparently last night, David Jaffe decides to, out of nowhere, I haven't listened to this, so I don't know exactly what happens, but start talking shit about Brantley, Keem's wife, or something like that. And Keem, who is like who's like a very hands-on boss, you can tell he watches all the shows of that he's like a part of and really like pays attention. He calls into his own show that he's managing here, and fires David and deletes the channel that night.
With Billy and Xylee.
Her fans.
So this is a caller who apparently starts this conversation about Keem's wife. I assume this is going to relate to the Lynx thing just because, like, you know, this is what happens when you have these stupid poly relationships. And the way Keem obviously views it is, oh, it's the best of both worlds. I get to have sex with a bunch of women and I still have my cool, like my hot wife. And, you know, I have threesomes. Like, it's like the way a 14-year-old would look at it. When really like an adult, like an actual adult man would think like, this is a time bomb waiting to go off, which is exactly what happens, right? And so I think this caller called in to talk shit about Brantley because obviously Brantley was putting after the whole shit with Lynx, it's like, what does Brantley even do? Like, if she gets mad, then like it gets thrown in her face that she consented to all of this. If she doesn't get mad, then she looks like a cuck. It's just and that was Keem's choice to put her in that position. And you may say, well, Brantley's like responsible too because she seems to be kind of like a lesbian who wants girls. But it's Keem's household, and I guarantee you, given that they're like 20 years apart, if the minute they got married, Keem said, okay, we're exclusive, we're having like a normal household, we're gonna live the rest of our lives together and it's gonna be great, she would have gone with it.
Who else showed their vaginas?
Brantley did. Keemstar's girlfriend. 100% did.
Who did she show them to?
She showed them to Kid Behind the Camera. 100% proven. Tech for tech. If you.
Dude, really? Okay, hold on here. Let's be clear. Anyone who doesn't know, Kid Behind the Camera doesn't look like Hassan. Okay. And to be clear, this guy just got our real divorce. Yeah, this is Kid Behind the Camera. Okay, this is a guy who makes videos about his divorce on his channel. He's a POB. He's like 400 pounds. And he just got put in lockup like in February for hitting someone. It's not clear exactly who. People think his wife or his daughter or something. And you're telling me that Brantley, who's like 19, 20, I think she's 20 now, and she's pretty attractive, like, is getting rizzed by Kid Behind the Camera. Like, how does...
Go to Rewind, go to Glammy Lammy's after party on the wedding. You will absolutely 100% hear Behind the Camera. He's drunk. He leaves and comes back. And he says, have you guys seen Brantley's pussy? I just saw it. It was so tight I couldn't put my finger in it. It's so tiny, it's just...
Oh my God. Oh no. Okay, so remember when I told you that supposedly the arrangement with Keem and Brantley was like an only woman thing, like only other women? Well... I guess that's probably why Keem got mad, because Keem only felt like he looked good in this whole weird poly thing if it was only women, because it made it look like he was the one who benefited the most. But now that this guy just dropped that, you know, Brantley's getting fingered, it makes Keem... I mean, Keem's a cuck either way, right? Obviously. To right-thinking individuals, Keem is a cuck regardless of whether this aspect is true or not, because it doesn't matter if Brantley is having fake sex, because lesbians can't have sex, but fake sex with a woman or what, he would still be getting cucked. But to the like coomers in the audience who are dumb and have the mind of 14-year-olds, some of them might have been able to cope and say, oh, well, there's no other man, so he's not getting cucked. Well, this claim makes him sound like a cuck, which is probably why he comes in here and loses his mind.
Well, again, I don't think anybody was...
just start their kitties around.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was fired because they showed their vagina. I think they were fired because...
No.
They should have been. What is Keem running here? A fucking, like, whorehouse?
Whether you agree or don't agree, and I'm in no...
This is what I mean. It's like you either this is the talk shit and anything goes, or it's like an actual production. And the problem is all the stuff that Keem cucked was the entertaining stuff, and the stuff he allowed is the degenerate stuff. You know what I mean? Like, after the one debate where Ethan Ralph went on and fought with the Boogie and Wings back in like June, which was a great stream, by the way. He never had him on again because he's controversial. He kicks Wings controversial. He kicks Wings for pushing his wife. They don't allow certain topics to come up. They like censor all this stuff because they want to stay like, quote, respectable. But then like it's like a freaking orgy going on, you know? I would rather have all the edgy like screaming matches and not the orgy. Can we have that? Can we make that choice?
If somebody is an adult and they choose to show their vagina, I don't judge that person negatively. And
you should. You should judge them negatively. Explicitly, you should judge them negatively because it means that they don't respect themselves and they don't respect anybody else. It means that they put no value upon, especially if they're like with another partner or whatever. And it means they don't value future partners because they just give it out for free, essentially. And this attitude, this is like the Destiny, oh, it's okay if you suck cock if you're married type attitude. And this just comes from him being like liberal, I guess, and just from the general attitude of now. But no, you should judge them. They should be like slut shamed for that. And the more you slut shame people for doing that, the more you help other women, high value women who did like do the right thing, which is why it's actually like pro woman to slut shame people.
Frankly, now I'm fascinated why Keemstar's penis is so small. If you're telling me he's marrying Brantley, and her vagina is so small that it's like, you know, it's kind of like you need like...
Okay, he's going in now, okay. Disregard my criticism. I mean, I still believe it, but now he's going in. Let's go. You know what's funny about that idea that religious people have less sex? Statistically, the people who have most sex are married, and religious people are married. So if anyone has the most sex, it's religious people.
Yeah. None of these are insults. I'm saying, well, if you're really religious, your vagina, maybe she hasn't had sex yet. Why are you doing why are you doing this?
Maybe.
I'm not insulting the woman. He's the one who called in and said this is one of Keemstar's shows, which is
Brantley's vagina.
I don't care if it's Brantley's. I'm just saying, how do you get to a point of having a vagina that, like, wouldn't that insinuate that particular human had not been sexually active yet? Right? That's not an insult. I'm just wondering. Shut up, Trenches. I'm going too far. How am I going?
Well, I agree that like you shouldn't skis up YouTube streams as far as like lewd stuff. I completely agree with that. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. Is I would rather Keem cut out all the degenerate shit and allow the like screaming matches. Like I would rather LOLCOW Live be a bunch of fat retards screaming at each other about whatever inane topic, and then not have all the like degenerate shit. Because one of those is like content for the audience, the other one is just gross and degenerate. The other thing to keep in mind is that Rekieta was like drunk and doing drugs the whole time as well. And obviously you don't want to associate drinking with streaming because like eventually it becomes like the brain pathways realign so that you literally cannot press play unless you're drunk. And that's exactly what happened to Ralph.
What her relationship is or isn't with Keem. I'm not insulting.
You should care about what her relationship with Keem because we know one aspect of the relationship, which is boss and employee. Okay, and that number one changes things, right? Because there's a responsibility you have as a boss with your employees. And who was it that insisted that this was a boss employee relationship? It was Keem. Keem wants to be in charge. And to be fair, I think that he has some right to be in charge given his successes in businesses. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to insist on this as a boss and employee relationship and that you're in charge, then you have to treat it like a professional relationship. And it's so funny that the way these guys view it is that it's worse to have this like crazy shit show online as far as like people screaming at each other, having these big debates, like edgy shit like that is unprofessional. But all this behind the scenes sex shit isn't.
Butterfly says, who cares? I don't care about the drama of the LCU.
Yes, you do. You're literally a host on a drama show. You are part of LOLCOW Live. Your entire job is to care about the drama in this universe. That's why you get paid.
Yeah. Well,
I care
this
about,
is what I'm thinking.
I care
we'll talk
about
the tiny vagina.
That's what I'm fascinated by.
That
For her.
Keemstar won't let her. And so I think
Good for her. What the fuck is going on here? This has gone from something that was already bad, which is Keem saying, I'm not a cuck. I just let my wife have sex with other women, and I'm just a cool, like, playboy with all the threesomes. Again, I'm doing the Ralph voice, even though this isn't Ralph, but this is like a Ralph thing, honestly. And now it's, I want to make porn. Like,
Keemstar let her make the film. Obviously, she wants people to see her vagina.
like, what is Keem doing? What energy is Keem putting out? What kind of things is he saying that she is responding to this way? Because that's the thing. It's like, and this happened with Rekieta. You know, there's this debate about who was the one who wanted the, like, threesome thing and the Rekieta-Kayla thing. And one side claims Kayla's a slut or whatever. The other side claims the opposite side of that is that Rakeda wanted to open things up, and Kayla became a slut for him. I don't know exactly what happened there, but this I would not be surprised if that was the case, and it's because like men take the lead and women, like, this is why I said like it's bad for men to reward poor behavior, because like it tends to influence the behavior of both genders, right? So if Brantley's talking about making porn and is showing her vagina and stuff, it makes me think that Keem is putting out some kind of energy or putting out some kind of expectation that he wants that. And, you know, after the call came out where he's talking about glazing Lynx's donut, I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable to say that this is basically Keem is putting out this expectation of like an open relationship and like hypersexual and whatever, and Brantley is just responding to it. I mean, they are like 20 years apart, right?
What's this guy? Honestly, the guys in the chat who are acting like this is a big deal, you guys have sex issues. There's no.
No, the people with sex issues are the ones who can't have a monogamous relationship that produces children, which built Western civilization. That's the people with sex issues. The ones who have to put out pornography of themselves, or the ones who have to have an open relationship that, as this you just said in the chat, literally always fails. Man was made to be monogamous for a reason. There's a reason why polygamous societies don't work. Okay, here's a perfect example. Muslim societies, polygamous, right? You know what happens? The top 10% of men marry 80% of women. So you have this massive overproduction of young, angry men. And then you wonder why they produce like terrorist groups that specifically like kill themselves, because men become desperate to achieve status and are willing to do anything to be one of those top 10% to get women. And nobody benefits. The women don't benefit because they don't have an exclusive partner. They just become commodified in an environment like that. The men don't benefit because they get radicalized and blow themselves up. Like, no one wins. Okay. And so like to come out here and say like, who cares? Like, none of it matters. You have sex issues. If you want a functioning society, it's like, okay, buddy.
About it publicly. So we're allowed
well, it becomes more people's business when you make your sex life public. And especially when you make it public in relation to the workplace.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
Are you guys actually like fucking serious?
We were just now talking about your wife's vagina, sir.
Are you? I think that's like that's so out of control.
Well, wait a minute.
Like,
that's not.
Do you think I'm just like going to be okay with like?
Do you have the
one
context?
Of my shows over
Of
here saying all
course.
this shit?
Context, bro.
Oh, here's the context.
Oh, of course, I'm going to be
What's
okay.
the context of your wife's vagina?
Okay with it?
Listen,
no, I'm not okay with
well,
it.
you don't know what you're not okay with because you clearly don't have the context. Somebody called.
Come on, David.
All I know is you let some caller call into the show.
You let some caller, dude. Oh, this is Keem cuckery here. These shows are built off call-ins, and you let a call in on the show. Yes, that's what people want to see. They want to see confrontation. They want to see people call in. This is what I'm talking about before. Can't we have the like platform confrontations and people screaming at each other and stuff like the LOLCOW stuff, and not have the degenerate like behind the scenes?
You saying what he called and said is not accurate. He called and said the kid behind the camera at Groundhog Day at Fat Camp because he was upset that Savage got fired for showing her vagina. And I said she did not get fired for that. She got fired because Keem had seen a bunch of evidence to suggest people weren't safe, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then he said, yes, but what about kid behind the camera on camera saying that Brantley, he had come back and seen her vagina? And I said, well, I don't really care.
Literally not true. That's literally not true.
And that's what we said.
Yeah, well, you're not really a reliable narrator, Keem.
We would have to see.
You know who could clear this up? Who I would maybe believe? Brantley. And you know, one thing you might say is, well, you know, you don't want to drag her into it, right? But she's put herself into it. She's part of the conversation. She was at Fat Camp. She's been on stream. I mean, infamously during the Keemstar show, she had a fucking melty, right? So it's like, Keem, I don't believe you. And the reason I don't believe you isn't just because you're known to lie. That is a big part of it. It's also because, of course, you're going to come in here. And when Keem comes in here and says, this didn't happen, don't think that this is him defending Brantley. This is him defending himself because he doesn't want to be a cuck.
And that's what
Who the fuck is the guy? Who's the guy?
I don't know, but he said he's going to give us a clip.
You don't know the guy that called into your show, Jaffe?
I have his...
What? This is the internet, Mujahideen. Anyone's going to call in and say whatever the fuck.
Number,
Do
I
you
can call
really
him
not
back.
know?
And this reminds me, another thing, I didn't pull up the clips for this. Apparently, as of like yesterday, LOLCOW Live is making you give like your email, social security number, your birth date, and your birth certificate to join. It's not that far, but like your personal information to join the server. This is why. This is why, so that if you say something that Keem doesn't like, he can like do something with your info, right? So that next time something like this happens and Keem says, who is this guy? He can just pull it up on the server or whatever.
No, the guy that called into your show?
No, it's a phone. I don't know. I have his number. I can
It's a
find
phone.
it.
Okay, so you mean to tell me that you're letting random fucking retards call into this show and
Yes.
spew shit about my fucking future wife?
Yes, that's the name of the game. This is the sector that you've put yourself in, bud.
Absolutely.
That's what you mean to tell me? When we set up a safe fucking whole Discord so you don't have random retards calling into show saying dumb shit.
But that is the
A safe Discord so we don't have random retards.
entertainment, Keemstar.
Incredible. Exactly. Thank you, David. Go off, King.
I'll tell you what the fucking entertainment is.
Yeah.
You're fired. Madhouse is canceled. Suck a dick.
Okay, no worries. But here's what you do need to understand, though. This guy,
Here's what you need to
this guy
understand.
says,
Bye.
this guy says he has a clip, and
Yeah,
so
he doesn't, retard.
So let's say
God,
he,
you're dumb.
But let's
You're
say
fucking dumb,
let's
Joppy.
say he does.
Yeah, well, you're not going to find out until you like make him show it, right?
So Madhouse was a pretty weird and unique show, but they
Why is Boogie bald? That's how far out of the touch I have not watched a show in like 6 months, and Boogie is bald.
kept fucking up. So they shit canned it because David has fuck you money, and I don't know David that well, but I think he's used to not hearing the word no really often and not getting.
What? So he's based and a king because he says whatever the fuck he wants. Like, I don't even agree with David on a lot of this. I just spent 20 minutes trashing him for his like. It doesn't matter if you're a slut take, but like that's base that he's just like, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, bitch. Like,
told what he can and can't do. So he did a lot of dumb shit. He had like a failed trip that he tried to take. That's fine. He talked about this or that here and there. He pushed the limits of what was acceptable in the network. And then
push the limits of what's acceptable in the network, i.e., let a caller come on and make a claim about Keemstar's wife. Incredible.
in this last week on 2 different scenarios.
I like to see someone call in and just straight up say Boogie's a pedophile. You think that guy's gonna get banned? Like, no, they don't care.
He talked about Brantley, the boss's, the owner's fiance, talked about her vagina.
Talked about Mass's wife living up in the big house.
And or fucking it. Specifically, he had an 800 number where you could call in and get on
Based?
his show, which is a bad idea.
No,
because
it's
we
based.
have,
No, it's based.
filters in place to make sure that you're not going to come on
Yeah, and make sure that you don't come on and be too entertaining.
and just shout the N-word a bunch of times. And
Okay, I get that. I mean, I'm an N-word enjoyer, but I get that for YouTube, you've got to have some kind of like filter or whatever. But there are ways to allow to have like an open number and not get TOS. Okay.
more importantly, you're not going to come in and talk about the boss's girl's fiancés. We're not going to talk about Brantley's private parts, which common sense is going to dictate. I think the boss tried to set him down and be like,
Remember when they had an arc on the show where Boogie peed his pants? I just like you to think about that while we talk about how we're not allowed to talk about Brantley.
hey man, an 800 number line is bad. Don't talk about my fiance's sex life or vagina. That's for her to talk about. Don't bring in, when this is specifically what severed everything. Someone called in on the 800 number and said a bunch of misinformation that Brantley once said on our show that she wanted to be a porn star. So he brought somebody in and they were spreading misinformation. They talked about Brantley having a small body part. They talked about Michael having seen
Small body part.
that body part. They talked about Brantley wanting to be a porn star and saying that on our live show. Well, Michael never said that. So that was a lie. Michael never saw it. Michael's never said he saw it, even when he was drunk. Brantley never said she wanted to be a porn star.
Well, technically what the guy claimed is that in a clip at Glammy's wedding, you can hear Kit behind a camera or whoever say that he saw it. So you can't say he's never claimed he saw it if there is a clip. And that's all David Jaffe was doing. He wanted him to play the clip to like explore the claim, right?
What we believe that guy was alluding to is that when during a drunk stream with Keem and Brantley said she always wanted to make a sex tape with her man, but her man knows that's a bad idea, so he says no because he can't let that shit be out in the world, right?
Well,
Dude, imagine.
you're misrepresenting everything. I put out multiple different posts and statements on our announcements, which you could refer to, but
Okay, I'll refer to those then.
I guess you're
Wait, so Boogie just comes in here. He does full sweep job. He gets out the industrial tier broom and starts like eating the poop off the floor. And Keem comes in and says, "That's all wrong. That's all wrong. That's not good enough." Like,
just deciding to make up whatever happened here. There's a person in chat. His name is Cap D Mac, who keeps saying that Keemstar made a crazy overreaction. Feel free to call in, bud. I don't think you will call in.
Hold on. I thought we weren't supposed to let in people call in because they might say crazy shit, and that actually we need to vet everybody. Now you're telling some rando, and you're getting one guy in chat, and you want him to call in?
No, but you are in fact a member, so you should have access to the Discord.
How's that any different than what David did?
Because I'd love to have a conversation with you, face to face. I've been hearing
Face to face. Okay, let's go, Ralph Mail. I'll slit your throat, Josh.
that I can't deal with Jaffe because he's not a yes man, and that's the conflict.
No, that's stupid.
And,
Yeah, that kind of seems like what happened.
no one seems to mentioning the whole like complete destruction of character that was done on his show around Brantley with multiple slanderous things.
I think people are talking about it, and honestly, there would have probably been people who defended Brantley because that's just the way it works. There's always going to be some people who defend it, and you could have let that play out. Or you could have had Brantley make a statement considering, again, she's already in this. This wouldn't be like taking a character who's outside and forcing them in.
Said that all these
Instead, you like had a chimp out, banned the channel, said you don't want callers, then told the caller to call in. And then had Bookie sweep the floor and tell him he's like
clips to back up his wildest slanderous claims were on Rewind, which would mean if they were true and they were on Rewind, David Jaffe, Bunny, and Tech would already know about them. Everyone here would know about them, but they played stupid like they might still be true.
Yep.
Just so like Brantley.
Well, I think they are true now. Like you could have let David Jaffe go through this thing, we would have seen the clip, and maybe we would have judged for ourselves or whatever. And then after the stream, maybe you have Brantley say something. But now I think it is true because you're having a massive like cuck rage. you're having massive cuck rage where now you're talking about fighting essentially face to face, right? Fighting IRL random chatters.
Would be embarrassed more, would be attacked more. There was no pushback from the host when you watch it. I just call in, bud. Just call in. If you really think it's like an overreaction, call in. Let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah, please do.
I want to hear you defend this stuff. It's going to be hilarious. The difference is when you call in, you're going to have a username. You're not going to be an anonymous person. That's the difference. You're going to actually have.
Okay, so yeah, this connects to what I was saying. This is why he changed the policy in the Discord to have personal information so that when people call in, they have to do it with their real name. That's so fucking gay.
Stand by your opinion that it was an overreaction.
It's so gay.
Don't talk about the situation because you don't know how to talk about it.
Okay.
Dude, they're going to get so much shit for that because if there's one thing that the internet mujahideen, which is what I call the chat for like the sector, hate, it's forced de-anonymization.
Just said something along the lines where what Brantley said is that she wanted to make a sex tape with her man.
I believe that's what I believe she said during
Keem knows that's a bad idea because he wouldn't want the world to see it. Okay, by saying it that way, you make it seem like Brantley wanted to make a tape to release to the world.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, well, that's what making a porno is, but
yeah, but that's the way it sounds.
I said
this is hold on, time out. Excuse me, I'm still talking. Okay. That's how you.
It's like in the debate the other day with Ralph. It's like, shut the fuck up. A real N-Wood's talking. Like,
you said it.
Except
so
way
again,
less
you don't know how to
based.
talk about the situation. I put out multiple statements. Refer to that.
Because this comes
because
off,
now you're just
when Ralph said it was like king energy. As bad as Ralph is, I'm sorry, he can play the character, right? But when Keem says this, it's just like, stop bullying my wife online.
Misleading people even more.
I swear, I'm not a
Let me leave
cuck.
it with this, okay? Brantley is not that type of person. Keem is not that type of person. I have no clue how the fuck you guys got to that idea. Fuck anybody who thinks that. You're fucking wrong. That's what I'm trying to say.
He doesn't think it. The guy was literally doing character assassination, lying on purpose, excuse me, and Madhouse was facilitating the fucking character assassination.
If it was an obvious lie, then why'd you spurg out? Like, again, this is like the Lady Doc protests too much at this point.
True.
Even though they knew the shit wasn't true.
True.
That's the issue. No one's thinking this. It's just a blatant fucking slanderous lie.
That's true.
Apologize.
Well, anyway, I apologize if I misrepresented Brantley in any way there. Or Keem.
You did. Stop talking about it unless you know what you're fucking saying.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think it's a justified firing regardless. And I think it's a good idea to part ways based on it. And if I'm wrong about that, I'll take that L.
Well, yeah, I cannot work with someone that's that irresponsible.